Hi, I'm Jeff, and welcome to another one of my videos. In today's video, we are going to be doing a mail call unboxing. In this box right here, I have 20 slabs that I just got back from CGC. Now, I have already had these slabs at home with me for a very short amount of time. These 20 slabs were sent back to CGC because they all had Newton rings. And Newton rings are considered a defect by CGC, and it is something that they will fix if you send your books back to them. Now, they do have some criteria. They say that the Newton rings have to be, I think they said, bigger than a quarter or bigger than $0.50, thereabouts. But generally speaking, they're going to work with you even if there's a small amount of Newton rings. So it's always a good idea, in my opinion, to send books back if they have Newton rings. I consider that an error in encapsulation, and I think that it should be fixed because it's a very, very distracting and ugly thing to have on a slab that hopefully is important to you. So what we're going to do is we're going to unbox these. We're going to talk about my experience a little bit. And I also picked up this box and I swear I heard something rattling around in there. So we're going to double check to make sure that none of these slabs are damaged. Also, these were all part of a 9/8 pre-screen. So we're going to see if indeed I get, I still have the 9/8 on all of these books. Now, that is actually in question on one of the books. One of them is an Amazing Spider-Man book that every so often CGC puts these little plastic tabs in the back. If any of these have them, I'll show them to you. They're not in every single slab, and they're not always on all three sides. They're there to help hold the book in place for certain instances where I guess the book is more inclined to shift around. Well, one of those plastic tabs on one of these books I could see was pinching the book at the bottom of the book. And when I sent these back in, I said, listen, folks over at CGC, this book might need a press and hopefully not a regrade. I mean, if they press them, they're going to regrade them. So hopefully that didn't come back with a lower grade. And frankly, hopefully I'm opening the box now. Hopefully, if it did come back with a lower grade, I won't be finding this out just now because I would really hope that CGC would give me a phone call or an email or something and say, hey, by the way, sorry, we damaged one of your books. Let's talk about this. But let's see what happens. Okay, so this is not as packed packed up as well as I'm used to. I feel like I'm used to a lot more tape on the top. This just had one strip of tape along the enclosure for the box. It's sealed up, so I can't be too mad. Also, this is an interesting thing. This is something that I noticed on my last submission that I got back from CGC. That was a 25 book submission. They're no longer doing the cardboard on top. They're doing a piece of bubble wrap on top. This cardboard that goes all the way around the outside, usually they put a piece of that on top of here, and right now they've been doing bubble wrap on my last two submissions, which is interesting. I think the bubble wrap probably works just fine, but it's interesting that they're doing that. Okay, so this is a box that usually holds 25 books, so they have extra bubble wrap in there to fill the void of the 5 books that could potentially still be in here. So first thing I want to check is I want to see, are any of these damaged? It was on this side that it felt like there might have been damage. No, this one is good so far. And it has Newton rings. It totally has Newton rings all through here. Okay, so let me talk for a second here about something. When I was submitting these books back to CGC, I am part of a CGC collectors group on Facebook. I took a picture of the 20 books that I was going to be sending back to CGC, and I said, here are the 20 books that I am sending back to CGC due to Newton rings. And that's all I said. I expected there to maybe be some discussion about people's experiences with Newton rings and CGC. what blew me away is that the overwhelming number of comments on this Facebook post were so negative and really rather mean toward me. People were calling me a Karen. They were saying Newton rings are not a defect. They do not damage the book. So you should just live with Newton rings if you have Newton rings. They were blaming me for being the type of person that is the reason why CGC is as backed up as they are, because of my frivolous returns. And simply I said, well, CGC considers Newton rings a defect. They will fix them for free. So I don't think I'm the problem here. In addition, if CGC just addressed the issues of Newton rings on their end and found a way to stop them completely, then I wouldn't have to send things back. But it was really, really interesting to me how mean and aggressive and angry people were that I would want a collectible that didn't have ugly, oily looking Newton rings on them. And the reason I stopped to talk about this real fast is because one of the things they told me is that Newton rings are out of their control, that they might ship them without Newton rings, and by the time they reach me, they could have Newton rings, and that's true, but I still think that CGC should be responsible to make sure to encapsulate things in a way where Newton rings are never going to be an issue. People also tried to tell me that there are ways to fix them on my own, and I should just fix them on my own, using suction cups to pull apart the plastic away from the book, which sounds like a bad idea to me. It sounds like a recipe for the disaster. You apply too much force and you pop that thing right open. Now you're in really big trouble. Another solution was people said you should you should wedge something in the edge here and just open it up just a little bit and shoot compressed air in there to stop the Newton rings. Once again, that's another thing that sounds like a bad idea to me that could potentially end in disaster. People were saying they do it all the time. Other people were saying they tried it and it's a temporary fix, that it doesn't fix the problem at all. So I am not going to attempt to pry apart or open up these slabs in an effort to correct a Newton ring issue that should be fixed by CGC and end up having myself a disaster where I destroy the slab and now I need to pay for it to get regraded. But once again, one thing that people said, and they're apparently correct, is that I run the risk of just getting sent back books with more Newton rings. And this first one has Newton rings. Absolutely falls into that category. Will I send that one back? I don't know. Let's see how the rest of them are doing here. This one does not appear to have Newton rings right here. That's good, making sure they're all still 9/8 too, showing you what this is. This is the Nice House on the Lake, issue number 1 in 25. This is another one of those. Does not, well, maybe a little bit of Newton rings right here, but I would forgive that. Well, no, actually, the more I look, the more I see them. They are there. Sometimes it depends on the light, and you have to kind of get at the right angle, but no, there are still Newton. Oh, no, this one does have Newton rings. Okay, so I didn't document these books and their Newton rings before I sent them off, but they all have Newton rings still. This is just super frustrating because I get plenty of books back from CGC. I mean, I'm not like the most thorough, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not sending 25 books every week. I'm not submitting a stupid amount of books to CGC, but I send enough to CGC to get a decent sampling, and I get plenty of books back that do not have Newton rings. That one had a small amount of Newton rings. So, no, these all have Newton rings. So I know that they can do books without Newton rings. I know they have the capability. And for them to just, oh, see, this one's bad. This one's, see, this is frustrating. This is frustrating. What am I going to do? Am I going to send all of these back to CGC? It's just a pain. And I have to say, it only took a little over 3 weeks for me to send them back and for them to send them back to me. But did they just kind of look at them and they decided that none of these were bad enough to fix? And they were just gonna, they're like, oh, the Newton rings aren't bad enough, we're just gonna return it to the customer and not do anything. I mean, these all have Newton rings. Some of them are worse than others. None of them are like crazy bad, but I mean, I'm seeing them the second I pull them out. The second I pull them out, I'm seeing Newton rings in exactly the same place as where I was. In fact, I did document some of these and sent them to, actually no, I documented all of them because I had to go through a whole process. I called CGC and I talked to them just to make sure there wasn't going to be any problems or kickback or any kind of pushback on me sending these in, and I jumped through some hoops for them, and I sent them pictures and demonstrated all of the issues that have all the Newton ring issues, and they said they'd take them back and fix them. This one's better. I'm not really showing you the books, am I? I'm sorry. I'm distracted by the Newton ring of them all. There's this one right here. Yeah, you see, like this one, this Avengers number 53 doesn't have Newton rings anymore. It looks great. This is fixed. But this Amazing Spider-Man issue number 93, I mean, it has Newton rings. I can see it right there. It's often right here, almost in the same place, which once again reminds me to tell CGC, hey, it's a chronic issue with these books in a relatively similar place each time. Maybe think about why that is. Okay, we are still going through. Okay, so this is the one that had the piece of plastic in it that was pinching the book. The book does look damaged where it was pinching. They still gave it a 9.8. But there appears to be, I'll show you a picture of it on the screen. There appears to be just the tiniest little bit of color rub where that pinching was taking place before. It's nothing major, it's not major damage, but it is right here on the back. There, but it's still a 9.8. I would say that even my own personal assessment, I would say that it is still a 9.8 even with that damage there. Nice House on the Lake issue number 1. This one looks better. This woman here had Newton rings on her head before. Now they appear to be gone. We only have 4 more to look at here, folks, so hang in there. Oh, see, yeah. This has Newton rings all over it. The reason I returned this one, the Newton rings weren't severe, but they were right over his crotch, and it looked like he peed himself. And I was like, I don't like that. As a collector and an owner, I wouldn't want that. And instead, now the Newton rings are just shifted over to the side a little bit. Well, as like I said, as mean as mean as the people in my Facebook book group were about me sending back books because of Newton rings, they were 100% right about one thing. They're like, you're just gonna get back books with different Newton rings, and they are not wrong. Some of these are fixed. Maybe out of the 20 so far I've seen, maybe 3 that appear to not have Newton rings anymore. But nope, this one and so many of the rest of them still do have Newton rings. So I asked myself the question, what am I going to do? Am I going to be the hamster that gets back on that wheel and just keeps running in place, sending them back more and more books, hoping that they'll figure it out at some point and get them fixed until I have 20 books that all do not have Newton rings? That's pretty tedious, and it's already feeling very tedious. And I feel like giving up and saying, you know what, it's going to be what it's going to be. I'm going to have to live with these. But the other part of me is like, CGC needs to figure this out. They need to learn. I don't care what people on my Facebook group say. You shouldn't feel the need to live with Newton rings. They are distracting and ugly and should not exist. So what I'm going to do is, I don't know what I'm going to do. I am going to wait a week. They say that sometimes Newton rings kind of change in pressure from where they were encapsulated and where they are now, heat and whatever, can create the Newton rings in the shipping, and that sometimes if you just let them sit for a while, the Newton rings will go away on their own. So I'm going to wait about a week or so, or at least until mid next week, and if they're all still there, I'll decide what to do. Maybe I'll call CGC and say, come on guys, what am I supposed to do here? Hopefully they've all gone away and I can just enjoy my books, but right now I'm in the position of what am I going to do? So I'm frustrated. I like CGC a lot. I like CGC customer service a lot. This is one of my biggest issues with CGC. I can even handle the slow turnaround times. I have a problem with poor encapsulation, and I consider Newton rings a symptom of poor encapsulation. Okay. That's this video. I was hoping I would be able to sing CGC's praises and say, send your Newton rings in and get them fixed, folks. But now it's like, send them in and who knows what kind of merry-go-round you're going to end up on. But here's just one person's experience shared with you. If you appreciate this video, likes are appreciated by me. If you haven't already subscribed, I definitely recommend subscribing. I have a lot of videos coming out in the next weeks and months to come. As always, thank you all so much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one.